They are already here. Not just on the news, but on your street. Since late 2023, one of the world's most powerful, coldest investors has bought more than 4,500 British family homes, spending over $1.4 billion. And that number isn't slowing down. It's accelerating so fast it should terrify every small, everyday landlord watching this. This institutional money is not dipping its toe. It is flooding the rental market at a velocity we have never witnessed, suddenly chasing the exact same semi-detached, three-bedroom houses and terraced homes you own. For years, they ignored you. Now, they are standing right beside you at the auction, and they have an infinitely deeper wallet. Our team spends their days talking to the people behind these deals, the developers, the builders, the pension fund insiders. We know the inside story. We know the spreadsheets that prove your small investment is now considered a target. This isn't just a financial shift, it's an existential threat to the independent landlord. In the next 30 minutes, we are going to break down the massive, emotional power shift that's happening, what it truly means for smaller investors, and the one thing you must do, starting today, to protect your investment and survive this silent takeover. But survival is about knowledge and community. Hit that subscribe button right now. Don't let the algorithm hide the most important financial truths from you. We need to know the inside game to survive this financial war. When we say institutional money, we're not just talking about one big name like Blackstone. That name is just the face of the operation. We are talking about the biggest financial forces in the world moving in lockstep: private equity firms, sovereign wealth funds, and your average pension fund. Think about that last one for a moment. Pension funds. They manage the life savings of millions of people. They demand stability and a rock-solid return decades into the future. They cannot afford volatility. They need an asset that pays reliably, no matter what happens to the stock market or global politics. For years, their money went into the safest possible assets, government bonds, or enormous commercial skyscrapers. Now, their sights are firmly set on your average terraced home in Manchester or Birmingham. This isn't just a new trend, it's a catastrophic shift in perceived risk. They see the family home, the most basic unit of shelter, as the safest long-term investment on earth. And the moment they collectively decided that, your competition went from a local couple buying their second house to a trillion-dollar investment machine buying its 10,000th. It's a unified front, and they are here to take market share. The most shocking part of this story is the speed of the focus change. Up until just a few years ago, these giants were only investing in luxury apartment blocks and student villages. They were playing on their own private playing field. Now, they have crashed the gates and they are buying the very kind of properties most people associate with the small-time landlord. The data is terrifying. According to leading property analysts like Savills, in 2019, only about 5% of all institutional investment went into single-family rental homes. That was their floor, their limit. Now, that figure has spiked to a stunning 54% of all money being committed. They are actively abandoning the shiny, city center flats aimed at young professionals and instead focusing on the exact same streets, the exact same house types, that ordinary landlords have been buying on for decades. This shift proves one chilling thing: the institutional giants no longer see your market as too small or too messy. They see it as the single, most reliable revenue stream available globally. And that's what makes the threat so real. But why now? What made them suddenly so desperate for the homes you already own? Before you panic sell, let's understand the cold, ruthless calculation behind this. They are not buying despite the uncertainty, they are buying because of it. Think about the life of the small landlord right now. You're wrestling with spiking mortgage rates, suffocating regulatory burdens like EPC changes, and the constant threat of capital gains tax hikes. The market is painful. Small investors are trying desperately to get out. For a company like Blackstone, this market turmoil is not a problem, it's a clearance sale. They operate on a simple principle: the greater the fear, the better the opportunity. While you're fighting for a 10% cash-on-cash return, they're looking at a $100 billion portfolio and seeking a stable, long-term asset that simply won't disappear. They want predictable, inflation-linked income. When the stock market wobbles, people still have to pay rent. When a commercial tenant goes bankrupt, it's a huge loss. When one family stops paying rent, it's a minor inconvenience spread across thousands of properties. They are looking for the financial equivalent of a deep-sea anchor. And residential property, with its scattered risk and necessity, is exactly that. And the scariest part? Their secret weapon is how they manage their risk, which is a direct attack on your advantage. The old way for an institution was to buy one large office block. Simple management, one tenant, one lease. The risk was concentrated. The pandemic exposed that strategy is fragile, offices shut, retail collapsed. Residential property, however, just kept churning out cash. So, they changed the playbook entirely. They realized the biggest headache for a small landlord, individual management, could be a strength if scaled. They aren't going house by house like you. They are going developer by developer. Imagine a new housing development going up on the edge of town. 300 new homes. A small landlord might buy 2. The institution walks in and buys all 300 before the ground is even broken. This is the fortress strategy. Everything is brand new, minimizing maintenance. Everything is under one hyper-efficient, digital management system, no need for local agents. They spread their risk across hundreds of homes instead of one giant asset, yet they maintain unified, efficient control. They can manage all of it from one central call center, eliminating the local knowledge advantage you thought you had. They have found a way to commodify the family home, turning it into a managed financial product. This all sounds like the end. But before you call the estate agent, we need to look at what this truly means for your neighborhood, because we have a global warning. This isn't a theory. We have a test case. In the United States, large institutional buyers like Invitation Homes pioneered this exact strategy after the 2008 financial crisis. They scooped up distressed homes by the tens of thousands. The results were chilling, and they should serve as a stark, emotional warning for the UK. Studies showed that in markets dominated by these institutional landlords, rents soared above the national average. Why? Because a corporate landlord doesn't care about a fair rent for the neighborhood, they care about maximizing shareholder return. They are far more aggressive with annual rent increases. Furthermore, tenant complaints about shoddy maintenance, nickel-and-diming over fees, and difficulty reaching a human being skyrocketed. When you're managed by an algorithm 3,000 miles away, your leaking tap is just a ticket number, not a friendly call to a local person. This is the human cost. It leads to the financialization of shelter. A home stops being a place where a family builds a life and starts being a unit of quarterly profit. This is the future we are staring at. And it requires us, the small landlords, to mount a serious, organized counter-defense. To beat them, you have to understand the emotional battleground. The institutional landlord's weakness is their lack of humanity. Imagine you are a tenant. You have a huge problem, a boiler failure in the middle of winter. With a small landlord, you call them, you panic, and they send their local guy who they've used for a decade. It's solved quickly because it's a person-to-person transaction. With a corporate landlord, you call a 1-800 number. You speak to someone in a call center, who logs a ticket, which goes through 3 layers of bureaucracy, and is then assigned to the lowest bid contractor who shows up 3 days later. Tenants will initially be attracted to the shine and newness of institutional properties. But they quickly tire of the feeling of being a faceless number. They tire of lease agreements that are 50 pages of punitive fees. They tire of the lack of flexibility. This is your battleground. If the price is roughly the same, the tenant will choose the good small landlord every time. Why? Because they crave the personal touch, the flexibility, and the simple truth that they are dealing with a human being who has a stake in their happiness. But to win that battle, you need to be good. The time for being accidental is over. The ultimate consequence of this institutional invasion is that it raises the floor on the minimum acceptable standard. If you're a landlord who's been coasting by, slow repairs, dated properties, ignoring calls, you are about to be crushed. We saw this exact scenario play out with student housing. Landlords who lazily rented out tired, unloved house shares with one bathroom between 6 bedrooms found themselves rapidly replaced by professional, private student accommodation providers. They had no choice but to sell. The institutional presence creates a Darwinian effect. Only the strongest and most professional will survive. Your new mantra: you are no longer a property owner. You are a service provider. Maintenance: you must match their speed. This means setting up systems to handle repairs within 24 hours. Quality: you must invest in properties that are easier to manage and offer a clean, modern living environment. Communication: respond to texts and emails like a professional business, not like a friend getting back to someone when they feel like it. You don't need billions in funding to adopt this approach. You just need to be intentional about running your operation like a lean, customer-focused business. By doing this, you'll not only survive, but you'll thrive, because as the weak, accidental landlords exit the market, competition will thin out, leaving you as the tenant's preferred choice. You can outservice them. You can't outtax them. This is their ultimate, hidden advantage and the thing most individual landlords overlook. These billion-dollar firms have entire teams of accountants who structure their portfolios with surgical precision to minimize their tax burden. They use complex debt structures, special-purpose vehicles, and corporate frameworks designed to pay the absolute minimum required by law. Most small landlords are still operating under individual names or in suboptimal partnership structures, simply paying more tax than they need to. Every percentage point they save is a financial advantage they can use to undercut your rent or outbid you on the next property. This is where the emotional urgency truly lies. It's not the rent, it's the tax leakage that will ultimately squeeze you out. Before you think about expanding or even selling, you must close this loophole. You need to stop viewing tax as a yearly annoyance and start viewing it as a vital part of your financial defense structure. I hope this video has been a wake-up call, not a death sentence. Your days as a landlord aren't numbered if you're prepared to fight. This isn't just about property, it's about the financial sovereignty of the individual investor. The institutional giants are here to stay. You cannot beat them on scale. You can only beat them on two things: superior service and flawless tax structure. The biggest investors have whole teams of accountants. You need to think like them. You need to structure your portfolio with the same deadly precision. Because while you might be managing your properties well, if your tax structure is bleeding cash, you will be pushed out.